The story kicks off in a dark, echoey hall filled with roars of terrifying monsters, all focused on a 38-year-old man named Jooheon Suh. He was severely injured, blood dripping down his body, and he felt like this might be the end. But Jooheon didn't want to go out like that. Not like a dog. No one did. Especially not when a massive, hissing snake appeared, reminding him of a mistake he had made 15 years ago. A mistake that had led him to this life or death battle. The story then took us back to 2025, a time when strange tombs began appearing around the world. These tombs didn't just show up quietly. Massive earthquakes would strike, and then giant tombs would rise from the ground, each containing powerful relics. But these weren't ordinary relics. They had the power to turn the world upside down. Anyone who managed to get their hands on one of these relics gained incredible, often supernatural powers. As expected, people began to chase after them, leading to a frenzy for relics. Jooheon was one of these people, although he had jumped into the game a little later than others. Still, he eventually discovered an archaeologist's relic, one of the most valuable ones, which gave him deep knowledge about all the tombs and relics. He thought he had hit the jackpot and could finally escape his miserable life. But things didn't go as planned. By the time he obtained this relic, those in power had already established a new world order. They had monopolized the relics and created laws to prevent anyone else from using them. With no other option, Jooheon was forced to work for these power-hungry elites, using his exceptional archaeological skills to assist them. A big corporation had scouted Jooheon for collaboration, and the CEO, Tae-jun Kwon, promised he would spare no expense to support him. And let's be honest, our hero was a little greedy like the rest of us. So, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. He became a tomb raider, using his incredible skills to sneak into tombs and hidden areas to steal those precious relics. This made his boss very happy, as Jooheon was helping him reach new heights by stepping over his team to succeed. A few years later, CEO Kwon became the strongest relic user in the world, all thanks to the relics Jooheon had stolen and collected for him. However, as Kwon gained more power, Jooheon started receiving more hate. People called him trash for working under a selfish dictator like Kwon. Despite this, Jooheon kept pushing forwards, working hard because he wanted to become powerful too. What else could he have done in a world that had gone crazy? He had to survive somehow. However, he never expected things to turn out the way they did. Naturally, if nothing changed, how could he improve his life? But this time, he got trapped by the very CEO he had been working for. Without anyone knowing, that backstabbing Kwon hung Jooheon and his teammates out to dry. Kwon felt threatened because they were becoming too skilled. Jooheon was furious, realizing he had ended up in this mess because of that traitorous CEO. The scene shifted to the present, where the snake was hissing at Jooheon. Out of pure anger, he picked up a stone and threw it at the creature, shouting in frustration. But then, he heard a voice in the darkness. Jooheon was startled, but the voice of the relic eased his fear, telling him this wasn't the first time it had heard the voice of a relic. Recognizing the voice, Jooheon angrily demanded that it get rid of the snake and let him leave. However, the relic replied that with his broken body, survival was impossible. His next step would be his last. Jooheon grew even more furious, yelling that it wasn't his fate to end like this. In response, the voice gave him a choice, the chance to change everything, to become a king, and to rewrite his destiny. Suddenly, the snake vanished, and a bird appeared. In a flash of light, Jooheon found himself sitting in a police station, unharmed and confused about what had just happened. A police officer interrupted his thoughts, frustrated that Jooheon wasn't answering any questions about his identity. The officer was angry, But Jooheon was still focused on the memory of the bird, now recognizing it as a crow, and wondered if it had all been a dream or a hallucination. As the officer grew more impatient, he mentioned the beginning of the year 2025, which snapped Jooheon back to reality. He looked at the calendar and was shocked. It was January 2025. Sitting next to him was a high school kid glaring at him, and Jooheon immediately remembered who he was. This was the same person he had fought before. It seemed that things were repeating themselves. Jooheon realized he had somehow returned to the past before the tombs had started to appear. The voice echoed in his head once again, reminding him that it was time to prove whether he would become a king. Finally, Jooheon understood everything. He had been given a second chance, and this time he was determined to gather all the relics and change his fate. He wouldn't let things end the way they had before. But Jooheon's spacing out didn't go unnoticed by others. The high school kid's mother angrily yelled at him, demanding either a settlement or threatening jail. Yet, nothing seemed to faze Jooheon anymore. Still, he decided to handle the situation first. He remembered that day all too well, how that high school kid had started the fight as if he had been planning it from the start. Back then, Jooheon had ended up kneeling and apologizing because he didn't have any money to pay the settlement. And now, in the present, he realized he was in the same situation. No money, no relics, nothing. While he was in deep thought, the kid's mother suddenly raised her hand to slap him, annoyed that he was ignoring her. But this time, Jooheon quickly caught her hand, realizing that his fighting skills were still there, and they had even improved. That was a huge plus for him. With this newfound confidence, he calmly told the angry woman that it was her son who had attacked him first, and that this whole situation was ridiculous. The high school kid, angry, tried to attack Jooheon again, but this time, Jooheon countered effortlessly. Every move felt new and powerful to him. As the police officer called out to calm things down, Jooheon quickly told them he didn't have any money for the settlement and that he'd rather have a criminal record than pay up. This caught the other party off guard since they were clearly expecting some money out of this. But now, Jooheon wasn't afraid of a criminal record. Soon enough, none of this would matter. Isn't this the first step towards having a kingly attitude? Now that Jooheon knew the future, he realized he had to plan things carefully. While thinking, he noticed some floating text in front of him. It was pretty annoying, and he guessed it was because of that crow relic. Then, a skills window appeared, followed by a quest window telling him to awaken 4 of his skills to become a full tomb raider. The strange part? Only he could see these windows, and everything around him within a meter was super clear. This was new, but he knew it had something to do with the archaeologist's relic. He quickly realized he didn't need to rely on relics anymore. His own skills would be enough. As he was thinking, his older brother, Kim Jeon-woo, came to get him out of jail. Jeon-woo had taken care of Jooheon when he was an orphan, treating him like a real family. Jooheon was thankful and remembered how young his brother was 15 years ago. Suddenly, Jooheon asked Jeon-woo if anything strange had happened recently, like supernatural powers showing up. Jeon-woo was confused and asked if Jooheon was drunk, even joking that his wife might have powers if no one else did. Jooheon laughed but realized nothing strange had happened yet. He knew tombs were appearing, but no one had used relics, so there was no chaos yet. This was his chance to move fast. He knew Europe and America would be the best places to start collecting relics, but he didn't have any money. Then, a group of men came over asking why he wasn't working. One of the men was Park Hyung-tae, a former street thug who now worked with his sister as an art broker, though he wasn't very successful. Seeing them, Jooheon suddenly got an idea of how to make some money. Jooheon joined the group to work with them, but little did he know this job would turn into a nightmare. He worked hard but got nothing in return, just disrespect and being treated like a dog. Now, they were threatening him again, but this time, Jooheon hit back, leaving everyone stunned. He then told them to let their boss know that he was done working with them. It was shocking to them, but Jooheon even demanded his remaining wages and severance pay. The thugs couldn't believe it and didn't take him seriously. One of them tried to attack, but Jooheon quickly fought back, and it was savage. Shocked and angry, the thugs decided to gang up on him, but they all ended up flat on the ground. Jooheon stood over them, saying they were already finished, and although he felt a bit bad for them, he was happy to realise his body was much stronger than before. Just then, one of the men tried to attack him with a knife they had planned to sell. Jooheon instantly noticed the knife was a relic and was surprised they even had it. Soon enough, he realised that this relic was one of those that liked to stay hidden among regular people. Either way, the knife was now his. He quickly attacked the thug and grabbed the knife. When he held it, he discovered its power. This relic gave him the ability to see the workings of the human body and even had the power of possession. Using his new strength, he warned the thugs to give him all the money they owed him, and they quickly agreed. Jooheon took all the cash, but it wasn't enough for him, so he demanded more. Scared, they handed him a Buddha statue that was undeniably valuable. When their boss found out that they had lost money to Jooheon, she was furious. And when she heard they had also lost the Buddha statue, she ordered them to get it back at any cost. Jooheon took the Buddha statue to a shop, hoping to sell it, but was shocked to find out it was only worth around 50,000 won. He couldn't believe that Park Kyung-tae had invested in something so ordinary. Confused, he left the shop. But then, a skills window popped up in front of him, indicating that there was something suspicious about the statue. He shook it and heard something rattling inside. Curious, Jooheon cut the statue open with his knife, and to his surprise, he found a small bottle with some liquid inside. At first, he was disappointed, thinking it was nothing special, but then someone nearby told him it was a liquid drug that people drop onto cigarettes to smoke, and it was pretty expensive. Realizing this, Jooheon figured out that those thugs had also started dealing drugs. An idea struck him. He had just hit the jackpot, and unlike most of us who are still waiting for our big break, it looked like Jooheon wouldn't be suffering anymore. He quickly called his older brother, Jooheon Woo, the detective, and asked him to confirm the reward for reporting drug trafficking. When Jooheon Woo told him it was 100 million won, Jooheon knew he had found his way to turn things around. The scene shifted to an art gallery, where Park Kyung-tae's sister was on the phone, trying to calm down an angry client. She assured them that the order wasn't delayed because it wasn't ready, but because they were under suspicion and needed to lay low. The client didn't take it well and shouted at her, so she firmly warned them. After hanging up, she noticed her brother walking in and immediately asked where he had been and if he had recovered the Buddha statue. To her shock, he revealed that they were in trouble now. 2 police officers stood with him, informing her that they had received a report about their involvement in drug smuggling and distribution. She was taken aback, quickly denying the accusations, insisting that they only dealt with artwork and had nothing to do with drugs. She even claimed that they were law-abiding citizens. But the officers weren't fooled. They reminded her that every criminal said the same thing when caught. What really unnerved her was when the officers mentioned they had also found drugs hidden in the warehouse. She had trusted the storage rooms because they were all protected by passcodes. So she remained calm and challenged them to produce solid evidence, accusing the officers of overstepping. But the officer had already gathered everything he needed. He confidently revealed that they had discovered drugs hidden in 6 pieces of artwork in the gallery. That revelation shattered her claim because each storage room had its own unique passcode, making her believe it was impossible for anyone to tamper with the artwork. The officer then smirked and revealed they had someone on the inside, Jooheon Suh. Jooheon had helped the police open all the doors because he had memorized every passcode, a skill he had picked up while working for them. Back then, he hadn't questioned why they used different passcodes, but now his sharp memory proved to be an invaluable asset. Thanks to Jooheon's help, the police gathered all the drugs and evidence they needed, and they thanked him for his assistance. But Jooheon, always sharp, requested a favour in return. Later, Jooheon called his brother, the detective, to inform him that the boss had been arrested. He then confronted the boss, telling her that this was what she deserved for treating him so poorly. He even joked that people who worked hard deserved to be paid well. Recognizing his voice, the boss cursed him, realizing it was all his doing. Jooheon simply told her to change her passcodes every 6 months and sarcastically wished her a pleasant stay in jail. That moment felt incredibly satisfying for Jooheon, as it would for anyone who had finally gotten back at someone who had wronged them. On his way home, Jooheon received a message from his older brother, Jooheon telling him that his reward would arrive soon and advising him to invest it wisely. Reading the message, Jooheon smiled, knowing his brother always worried about him. But this time, he didn't need to. Jooheon now had enough money and could finally start searching for tombs, aiming to collect the relics before that bastard, Kwon Tae-jun, could get his hands on them. However, as soon as he arrived at his house, he was met with a shocking sight. There were no buildings, only tombs. People around him were panicking and fighting, but Jooheon knew this was a normal reaction whenever tombs and relics appeared. He remembered a similar day from his past when he used to work under Park Kyung-tae. His old roommate, Kim Dong-hyun, had called him, frantically telling him that their apartment had disappeared. But by the time Jooheon arrived, everything was fine, which meant someone had successfully cleared the tomb back then. Now there was chaos, and someone had to be responsible for it. As Jooheon searched the area, he suddenly heard a voice nearby, a man begging not to be shot. When Jooheon got closer, he saw it was his old roommate, Kim Dong-hyun, pleading with a military officer. Without hesitation, Jooheon stepped in, confronting the officer and asking if that was really the right way to treat a civilian. The officer quickly backed down and apologized. Turning to Kim, Jooheon casually remarked that it had been a while. However, his roommate didn't seem to understand his meaning. Jooheon, sensing something odd, wondered what the military was doing in the area. He asked the officer directly, but the soldier refused to answer, claiming it was classified information. Jooheon wasn't about to let it slide, so he pushed further, arguing that as a resident, he had the right to know what the military was up to. When the officer still didn't budge, Jooheon slyly blackmailed him, threatening to report him for pulling a gun on a civilian. That did the trick. The officer revealed they were planning to blow up the tomb and excavate its contents, assuring Jooheon that everything was under control and the area would be secured. They had even brought in foreign experts to handle the job. Jooheon, knowing more than the poor soldier realized, kept his cool, wished the officer luck and walked away. When Kim asked about the conversation, Jooheon didn't say much, leaving his friend puzzled. Meanwhile, across the scene, an American CUA agent named Linda Walker was on the phone. She confirmed that the Korean government didn't know much about the tombs, noting that the number of soldiers on site didn't increase. The person on the other end reassured her that the soldiers were there to assist. Linda instructed them to stay focused and continue investigating the tombs, aiming to retrieve the relics as quickly as possible. She was determined to make her plan work, but will she succeed? Find out in the next part. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to ring the bell so you don't miss out on more content like this. And once again, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.